Wait for the doggy.
All right.
Here we go. 3.
Ruff, ruff.
Hold on a second. One more thing.
Are you recording?
Yeah, I'm recording right now. Ready? Say, kids, what time is it? PDR tool time. Hey, what's up, everybody? My name is Mike Toledo. I'm here with Daniel Grom, which he'll be jumping in a little bit. He's not quite here, but he's here. We've got Vince D'Alessandro and John Hiley. We have a special guest here with us, guys. I'm going to let Vince introduce him. So let's welcome on board. Here we go, guys.
Hey, guys. How's it going today?
What's going on? What's cracking?
Fantastic, Vince. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. We have Dave Shalott, an old friend of mine that might not be a household name on the internet, but he has been pushing dents since 1992 and is one of the first guys that took me underneath his wing once I got out of dent school back in 95. He's been all over this crazy world doing dents, hail damage, training, and I chose to have him come on the show and pick his brain about different ways of doing dents and tools used throughout the world and training and all sorts of good stuff. So I'd like you to welcome Dave Shalott.
Nice, Dave. Nice to meet you.
Hey, thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Real
Appreciate
pleasure
you
to
guys'
meet
time.
you, Dave.
Now, what dent school are you talking about, Vince? Are you referring to?
I'm referring to Dent Wizard. I came on the scene in 95. Dave came on the scene in 92. So he had 3 years to gain. And when I got out of school, I had nothing but a master tool and a set of tools. And Dave was one of the first guys that took me under his wing and showed me the way. At the time, he was the lead tech over at ADT Auto Auction. And he showed me the ropes. And I think, Dave, you might not remember this, but I think it was a month or two, and I was out of school, and Chicago got hit with a huge hailstorm. And first things, I'm like, I see this, what was it? It was a Chevy Corsica or something. And it had at least 2,000 dime-sized dents on it. And I'm like, what do you want me to do with that? And Dave is like, fix the damn thing. I'm like, all right. So, yeah, he's quite the character to work with. And I had the pleasure of doing that many years ago. And good old Facebook is now reacquainted ourselves again.
You referring to the hail, Vince, that also encompassed the airport? Was that the year?
Oh, yes, I believe that might have been the year.
When you said Chevy Corsica, that certainly brought a flashback.
Yeah, I was going to say Corsica. I haven't heard that freaking name in a long time, dude.
That would mean the wash bay at Avis rental cars.
Yes. Dave had this great idea. This was before lights, and we touched on this the other day, Dave. We didn't have shop lights, and we didn't have LED lights. And Dave would wear blue blocker sunglasses outside. You remember that, Dave? You said
you may have confused me with the other guy, your other buddy.
Blue blockers.
The blue blockers belong to Mr. Wilson.
Oh, okay, yeah. Maybe it was Mr. Wilson.
That wasn't my bag.
You can always hear Daniel Grom's coming in. He's making all the noise, dude. So.
Yeah, but
Sorry.
There was guys that would swear by being able to use blue blocker glasses and fix dents without using lights or line boards or fog boards. It was quite funny.
Really?
There was some truth, though, and I have to agree that cutting down the glare is vital, as it is today. And I think there was a hint of reality and truth in that.
Sure.
It wasn't for everyone, and it wasn't for me, but I think those using the blue blockers at that point in time, were making a fashion statement as well as using the glare cut down factor.
Absolutely, I'd agree with you. There was something to it. I did sport a pair of granny blue blockers to do hail damage every once in a while when working outside.
Outside, yeah. You almost have to wear something, like polarized glasses to be outside, especially on a white vehicle too. So,
yeah.
So what's going on? Like, what else we got in store for Dave here?
Well, Dave, why don't you tell us a little bit about your history, where you come from, why you choose to do dents still after all these years, and I know you're a tool whore as well, so I'd like to hear your opinion on the latest and greatest, what's in your toolbox, and what you've seen in Europe technicians using, and just elaborate a little bit of how you do things.
Sure. Well, you were kind enough with the introduction, and I did start quite some time ago. Excuse me. And I grew up in the St. Louis area, and I was a candidate and a shoe-in, as many of the original Dent Wizard employees and technicians were. A good majority came from the St. Louis area, and that's my hometown. And so I had the good fortune of being introduced to one of the franchise owners, and also having a contact in the plumbing business with a gentleman named Darren St. Ivney. And his father ran a plumbing contracting business, and my father ran a plumbing supply business. And so Darren and I knew each other from before our dent days, and we actually played a little hockey together, some men's league ice hockey, and we went to the same college together at Southern Illinois University in Edwardsville. And as people may or may not know, Darren's sister was married to Clay Smith, who is one of the regional managers with Dent Wizard, and always has been their top sales executive as well. And so when the opportunity came to jump on board, that's what I did. I was not necessarily looking for an out for my family business, but that's what it ended up being, and chose out to be a good career path for me.
Yeah, and early on, did you struggle, or actually you were probably trained by Lido, I would think.
I was trained by Lido in Miami. Yes, I was one of the. I believe the original class was actually held in St. Louis. Probably, I'm going to say sometime in 1990 or somewhere thereabouts, 90, 91, something like that. And I don't know exactly which class I was in Miami, but it was one of their early ones as well. But I was, very fortunate to have been trained by Lido, and not a lot of guys left that can say that. Although Lido's training now again, but certainly with that group in the industry and the company I started with, that number has grown smaller, shall we say.
And one of the interesting things about that too is, we go to MTE every year, and I know you kind of shy away from that, but I hope to see you there one of these years. But Lido has been there the last 2-3 years, and there's times that we look, myself and Mike and some other Dent Wizard guys, we look around the room and we're like, holy crap, this guy, the lineage from this guy alone, when you think about how many people have learned that it comes directly back to him, and it's stunning to think about it at times.
Sure, he passed his knowledge on to the people that are now involved in doing a lot of training throughout the country and globally as well. And you're right, the lineage, that's the perfect term to use. It does come back to him because he was the one that kicked off so much for so many people.
Sure.
Back then, did you know what you're getting into? Were you excited about it? Did you know there was a huge future in this business?
No. I think no is the right, honest initial answer. My understanding was we started out as a service for the used car lot, for the trade-ins, for the cars that have dings, and we're going to save them money, but it's still going to be lucrative for us. And that was kind of the infancy, and that was the thought process. This is a used car service. No one knew it would morph into, these huge body shops and collision centers, that are dotting the South and the Southwest, and no one knew it would go into the hail and the catastrophe and become a global business the way that it has. I didn't have that foresight. Maybe someone did, but it wasn't me.
Can I ask you something, Dave? Looking back at the history of doing cars on the car lot, let me ask you something. What have you seen? I find it so interesting that I actually, back when I did car dealerships, at one point I had about 70 car dealers. And I was actually noticing that a lot of times the technicians that I was competing against, their price was less than the touch-up guy. So the guy who was carrying touch-up paint on the lot and dabbing, like literally, he had a couple hundred paints and he's shaking up the bottle. He's walking around the car and he's tabbing touch-up. This guy is making more money than somebody who's skilled enough to push dents. And I'm like, holy crap. The car dealership market has went to crap when a guy who can walk around with touch-up paint can outsell a dent guy and get more money per car. I was floored when I seen that in our local market. Now, over the years, let me ask you something. What have you seen as far as the progression? Has the prices went down over the years? I mean, what have you picked up on that since you were?
I think it depends on the part of the industry that you're involved in. Certainly dealer pricing has eroded. A lot of other pricing at the rentals I've seen has eroded. The auction level has remained constant. It's not gone up or down. So there's no adjustment one way or the other at that particular level. I think we've gotten smarter and learned. Obviously, the industry has grown and we've gotten smarter and put on R&I charges now. In the early days, the hail business, for those that were doing hail full time, I think they took some of the body shop estimates and then just, threw a number up on the wall to see if it would stick. And most of the time it did because the insurance companies were writing for full conventional repair. And some body shops also had labor rates that have had their ups and downs as well. So I think the hail has gone up, and certainly our retail pricing has gone up, but we've become smarter and looked at it from the point of view. And again, it's a regional thing, I think, depending on what the labor rates are in the marketplace.
And, that's kind of the way that I look at it now, because I actually look at car dealerships now as places people begin their career. You know what I mean?
I know.
Like they go into this market and they begin it, and hopefully they can find a way out of it so they can start making real money, and there is money to be made on them little, if you just crush through cars at $35, $50 a car. I mean, that's what's going for around here. I can't contend. I won't go do a car for $35.
No.
But I do totally agree with you in the hail end. I mean, it's definitely increased, and it's opened up. But I was just wondering how that was back in time. Like when you guys first had to approach car dealers, you're trying to save them money. I mean, was you guys getting a reasonable amount per car back then?
I was commanding $75 a panel on a wholesale basis,
nice.
which was good money. And again, it was a fraction that the one thing that seems to have been lost, and we can, this idea and the conversation can grow a lot of legs like an octopus, but we were saving money, and there was still this post work sale where you would inform your customer, hey, I repaired this dent for $75, but don't forget, it would have cost you $400 or $500 in the body shop to paint it.
Yeah.
And I think we've lost sight of that, and we've become viewed as an expense rather than a savings because of the volume of technicians and just the nature of the business. And a lot of industries have gone through it, and they've kind of dove down a little bit in pricing and maybe come back and leveled out, and they're on a plateau. Perhaps the glass repair industry is a good example of that, where it started a touch higher and then dipped down, and now it's kind of plateaued out, and insurance companies and glass companies are all, kind of at a median level now, so to speak.
What you hit on, Dave, I want to re-elaborate because the audience really needs to hear this and they need to understand it, because it's a technique that I use all the time. And we talked about this when I recently did a video on Dent Trainer, was how to make $1,500 on a mobile day. Just servicing mobile customers, and I calculated my daily, and they followed me along and this kind of stuff. But I got some questions. People are like, when you do a
Go ahead.
people started hold on for a second. We're probably gonna cut and edit this out, right?
I want some ice cream too.
Me too. I want ice cream.
Ice cream. Ice cream.
Chocolate.
All right, I'm gonna start back.
I got some ice cream. I got some ice cream, and you cannot.
Don't worry.
Hey, Mike.
I'm a good editor.
Your mom's on welfare.
You
Mike,
know me.
You don't even have to edit this out. I'm going to start back over, though. I want to go back to the point where I want the audience to understand this, to re-elaborate this principle, okay? because recently we did some videos and I was doing some repairs that were, and like a lot of us do, Daniel was talking about it the other day. He does a $375 job. It's done in an hour. There's all these big metal moving techniques that we're adopting, things that are making us more money, tools that are making us more money. And you got to elaborate that, because I'll get done with a $375 job in an hour, hand the guy the bill, and, you know, you kind of get that look. He's going, wow. He goes, yeah, that was pretty fast, right? And the very first thing I hit him with, I say, wow, yeah, I said, and I can't believe what a body shop would charge to do that. That is the very first place I mentally bring them. I shift them from, hey, boy, that was fast, when I hand them the bill, to, man, you know, a body shop, that would have been really high. And a lot of times they say, I know, because I took it there. I got the estimate. It was $1,700, and I called you because they wanted to replace my door. You just shifted that customer's paradigm right there from, wow, that was fast, I just handed you $375, to, wow, that was fast and great, and it only cost me $375.
Yeah.
So that is something that we just got to hit home, you know, to make sure the audience understands that.
Or you can say, I just bought a $3,500 suction cup and it works really good.
Yeah.
Or I got to put a supercharger on my Corvette, so I need that extra cash.
Yeah.
Your commute to work will get quicker.
Yeah.
I had an interesting, in back to my comment with the hail increasing at the 4-month mark, and the reason the 4-month mark is important, starting out and at that time in 1992, the Dent Wizard compensation structure was such that you had a 4-month guarantee from the time you finished training until you were then supposed to go on to a commission, compensation plan. And so you had 4 months to get your act together. At 4 months on the nose, I was working in the New York area. I had moved there, and 4 months to the day, it hailed in New York City and on Long Island. And that was kind of my break point. It was one of those moments I didn't understand at the time, but then that really became the point in time when everything clicked for me, and I began to understand what I had gotten myself into. And we were doing cars for, $1,000, $1,500. You could do a car in a day then. It was tremendous billing at that point. I thought I'd hit the jackpot. It was a wonderful, wonderful opportunity. But now we understand, our industry's grown and gotten better. We've gotten better as technicians, of course. And the understanding of what it costs to do those repairs has changed, and the dynamics changed within the insurance industry as well. But just as a side bit, that's, where I had started out with the hail. And so speaking with a little bit of authority and experience, I've seen the hail piece increase, in our industry, which has been great. And you can't expect everything to increase. You're going to have ups and downs and dynamics of the business. But that was kind of my introduction. And now, it's easy to write a car, and we know where the numbers are, and you're well north of that nowadays.
Yeah. Now, are you still out there pushing hail once in a while, Dave, or what are you doing?
I do a bit of everything. I'm fairly diversified, but recently moved to the Phoenix area. So I'm kind of, I'm reestablishing myself, so to speak, from the ground up.
Got it.
Nice.
Now,
That's got to be exciting. It's got to be exciting. And there's just so much opportunity, I think, nowadays that there's so much education out there and things like that to even help. And the internet is just insane for building your business. So, and I wish you the best of luck out there. I'm sure you'll do great.
Dave, you were a career Dent Wizard technician for how many years total, would you say?
I would say 23.
Wow.
23 years with Dent Wizard. And within those 23 years, you've seen a lot of technicians come and go. I tend to think that most door ding technicians have a lifespan of about 5 years, and they either move on to a different type of career or they get into hail damage. And hail damage obviously is less stress on your body and things like that. But, in a sense that, for lack of a better word, you were kind of like a whipping boy for Dent Wizard for many years, and voluntarily. It's not like you were held hostage or anything to work for Dent Wizard. And they did treat you good for many years, and they treated me good for a few years. So before I left.
Yeah, they gave you all them free tools, right?
Yeah, that's right. Anyways, you spend a lot of time traveling around this country, and you spent time in Europe. You've trained a lot of technicians in England that were dent master technicians that switched over to Dent Wizard. And did you find, like in Europe, that their techniques or their tools were different? Were they faster? Were they slower? There's a lot of myths that come along with Europe and what we think of the technicians, the Italians and the Germans, and how good they are and how fast they are. Do you have any input on that at all with what you saw?
I guess I need to think about that. That was in I was asked to go to Europe in 1999, and as a matter of fact, on all days, July 4th, 1999, I departed this country and on my maiden trip. And at the onset, my direction was really for some hail. And I was going to Europe for 6 weeks, primarily to do some hail. At that time, Mannheim had acquired Dent Wizard, and they bought a dent company in Europe called Dent Master. Mannheim did the due diligence and the acquisition, and then handed it to Dent Wizard to run. And my piece was doing some hail damage because the manufacturers had distribution centers, just as they do here, and big ports and so on. And so I went for 6 weeks to do some hail damage and ended up coming home 3 years later. A tremendous wealth of opportunities and experience. And the one thing that we did as a company, we kind of, I think we expected a lot of things to be very similar to what we knew and how we operated and the way we ran, the business in North America. And it wasn't that way at all. It's a very different society depending on the country you're in. In France, you have a 2-hour lunch from noon until 2 generally.
Siesta.
The middle, you have siesta in Spain, of course. The businesses close, somewhere around the 2 o'clock hour, and they don't reopen until 5:30 sometimes, 6 o'clock in the summer. There are a lot of variables that were difficult to understand because it wasn't something I hadn't been exposed to. And so, you went in running and gunning with our, capitalism mentality, and you realized that wasn't necessarily the best way to get things done. Certainly leading by example helped, but that only went so far because you have deep-seated cultural traditions that you're up against and you just could not win. And you were a foreigner.
We work like dogs, don't we, compared
to
the Europeans? Yeah.
Yes, we do. But, in terms of myths and whatnot, there's a gentleman there, and maybe you guys know him. You guys know Alan Spears?
Yeah, he worked for me.
There you go. Alan was there, and he was kind of heading up the hail portion of things for Dent Master Europe, but their base, of course, was in the UK. And Alan was there, and he had some good insight and some good experience. He married an English lady, I believe, and that's, he ended up staying, and as far as I know, he's still in Europe. But anybody that had an A1 tool catalog was the king back in those days. And that, tooling-wise, that was their choice. And I think a lot of that came from the influence of Alan. And we didn't have the internet. We didn't have all these tool catalogs, and we didn't have international shipping and things like that. So it was a very sparsely tooled industry, so to speak. There was not a lot of choice.
That's interesting. Alan actually came and he worked for me for a little while in 2011. Big problem arose, though, is Alan had dual citizenship. And the problem was he had 2 guys that was with him that were from Ireland. They weren't citizens of the country. And we didn't know about it, so somebody had to take accountability for what they were being paid. And I eventually found out that he ended up getting a different gig or something like that. But they were definitely great whenever they were here working. They did some hammered stuff for me. They were here for me a couple weeks. But I just I was so behind the gun. We had so much hail. I all of a sudden I meet these guys. You got 2 Irish guys with them. I'm like, hey, I'm like, so who is getting 1099'd? And we're all in an office, and I'm like, because I'm paying you guys a lot of money, and there ain't no way that I'm claiming it all. And Alan sticks his hand up. He says, I'll take it. And yeah, it was probably about 3 or 4 days later, I think, that they found something else going on. But you know what I mean? It's
I do.
yeah, I mean, there's a lot of money going out, and you have to have somebody taking responsibility for that. You don't want it to end up landing on your own taxes.
Yeah.
So
Sure.
that's where and Alan did. He took the 1099 for it. I 1099 him that year, whatever they made, and Alan absorbed whatever these guys got paid as well. So
Sure. There's some interesting things I learned. You know, being out of the country 330 days of the year has its advantages, but then, you know, somebody else is going to be saying, "Hey, wait a minute, you're claiming residency in my neck of the woods, and I'd like my portion of that." So there were some interesting tax implications and things I learned. And I was being paid in U.S. dollars for my time there, but I was claiming residency in the UK, and then they wanted their piece of the pie, and it was an interesting situation, and you learn a lot from it. And the other thing, the big part of it, because it was the UK as my residency, their tax year and our tax year don't line up. Theirs is based on a calendar year. Ours, of course, is, you know, April 16th, April 15th, so to speak, and so there's some differences and some variables. But fortunately, you know, there are people that are above my pay grade that handle these things.
Mm-hmm. You know, from my understanding over there in the UK, Mark Monks was actually telling me the biggest problem he has is you have a good year in the UK and you're making all this cash. Well, they expect you to pay the same amount the following year, even if you don't make as much. So he's like, that's the big pain in the butt. So they got a bill waiting for you for the next year, you know, saying, okay, you made this much this year. We're just going to estimate it. You pay us this much now. So you almost got to like pay them and then try to get your money back.
Yes, and their reconciliation process on the equivalent of our April 15th is not as friendly as it is in the U.S. Let me tell you that much. The inland revenue is
Right.
They can be difficult to work with, to say the least.
Right.
No, well, in Europe, you know, on the boards, people used to talk about the Italian hail teams that used to come in and just wipe out and decimate. They were fast and they hammered everything, and they were quick and whatnot. And
I've heard that. The Italian stallion, Vinny over here.
yeah, so I'm wondering about my countrymen, not my countrymen, my father's countrymen.
Yes, the father country. The Italians are, you know, they fall in that category of the mythical dent guy. You know, there's a dent guy. We know we'd never see him, but he shows up and fixes dents, and poof, he's gone. He disappears. He's, you know, where did he go? Where's the dent guy? You know, and it's I don't know that the grandeur of the stories is quite as grand as you would like to be led on to believe, perhaps by the teller.
Now, were they using basically the same tools we're using, or you know, a lot? Do you find that like Europe uses sharper tip tools or more blending techniques, or anything along the lines of tools that are different than what we do?
Let's remember. Let's go back. We're going back 16 or 17 years ago now.
Oh. Okay.
Because we're in 2016. I was there from
that's
1999 until 2002.
Never mind.
So at the time, it was I'll call it archaic. You know, some of the things that I had seen were archaic and painfully slow from some of the, without offending anyone, some of the groups of individuals I saw, and I'm not going to try and categorize, but it was something that they were very tight knit. They banded together, which I appreciated that camaraderie. But I don't know that they necessarily set the world on fire at that point in time. And I ran into some in France at a distribution company called Jeffco, and I believe they're still in operation today. They may have been acquired, but big Peugeot and Citroën distribution company. And again, the business is structured a little differently there than America as well. A lot of the reconditioning work that gets done at the companies like, we all know the name Cassens, who are the auto carriers. We've all seen the Cassens, semis carrying 10 cars at a time. So Jeffco is that kind of platform to provide the logistical dispersion of vehicles, but that's also where a lot of the reconditioning is done. And so it's a different cultural difference, but it was quite some time ago, and I don't know that they really impressed me, to say, without being offensive.
Yeah.
Not that we were the greatest thing. That's not the point at all. But it was still a very long time ago, before the distribution and creation of very good tools and a better understanding of what we were getting into. These guys had, picked over sets of old school tools.
Yeah, recently me and Vince been picking up some tools from Germany, which Mark Zirkis carries on his site called Dent Tools USA, right, Vinny?
Yes.
And there, he says the tools were engineered in Germany, and the adjustable handles are just completely smooth. The ratchet, they look like a Dentcraft tool with a handle.
CarePoint.
Yeah,
CarePoint.
CarePoint. Okay.
Right.
Super
Hey,
good.
you know Mark Zirkis, he says, "One show, John. I do one show with you."
Get a hold of
He's
him.
on. Yeah.
No,
yeah.
My friend.
Dave,
he
you probably
looks like my
ran
brother.
with you in Chicago for many years. Do you know Mark Zirkis? And
I do. I don't know that I know him. I know who he is, and I know his history, but I don't know that I have met him personally. It may have been the case,
See,
over the years. There have been a lot of people.
And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to pull you on the podcast, is because you are a technician that has made a great living doing this. And I've just now seen you on the internet in the last couple, 2-3 months, where some of us live on these Facebook groups. And before Facebook was around, there was DoorDing. And you are the perfect example of a lot of technicians out there that are great technicians that aren't on the internet. You guys exist, and you come from some of the management, part of Dent Wizard 2, and you were always kind of looked upon as someone that of stature. Maybe it was because you went to college. I don't know.
Well, yeah, he's busy making money.
Hey, earlier,
busy making money. Exactly.
So earlier, hey, you guys were talking about the Germans. I want to tell a quick story about this, okay? So you guys know Alan Jason Cheney?
Yeah.
A couple brothers, okay? Good hail techs. Good, solid hail techs, man. And I would say Jason's probably one of the better hood and decklet guys that I've seen. And they told me they went over to Vinny's taking his shirt off here, getting his muscles down, flexing his muscles on us. But they told me an interesting story. They were actually in Germany, and they said the quality level was really high at the storm that they were servicing over there. And it was so high that they had this German guys that were walking around intimidating and like riding, circling their spots on the hoods and pointing things out, and like yelling stuff in mean German. I mean, butterfly. The word butterfly in German is like Rockchock, something that sounds in every other language sounds so awesome. And he said that I guess the guy comes over and asked him, did you do this hood? Yeah, we did it. So he circles it up, starts pointing stuff, and they just kind of start laughing. He's like, what, And they say, well, you guys painted that hood. And he said from that point they were ousted in that shop. So did you see that when you were working over in Germany? Was the quality really high in the body shops? Were they really hard to deal with? I mean, for some reason, I just feel like if you were in Germany, it would be abrasive, to say the least.
I spent more than my fair share of time in Germany, and the word for butterfly in German is Schmetterling, if I'm not mistaken. So you're almost on the money with that. I spent enough time in Germany, and again, this is all very, becomes a very fortunate experience. And I like to think I'm one of the people that I'm not going to be the American that goes to McDonald's in Germany, if you follow me. I wanted to, I did not, as a child, pay attention to my grandmother and grandfather, who so lovingly tried to teach me German. I wish I would have. My father spoke fluent German. He was a godsend to have at my cell phone's reach if I needed it. I learned so much there. I can read a condition report for dent repair in German, and that's a wonderful thing to understand the names of the parts of a car, which really is all you need to know,
Right.
The rest is easy, and they call it cold dent, cold delen, cold dent repair, because there's no heat. You're not painting. You're not heating the panel in a booth. Things like that. So it's cold dent repair, and of course now they may really call it paintless dent repair, which is delen infernen ona lackieren, and lack or ona lack. Lack is paint, and we did. This is going back quite some time. I went to Stuttgart in August of, I bet it was August of 2000, thinking of it. And that was one of the first big hailstorms that the American presence was around for. And we did a demo at the Mercedes authorized service center in Stuttgart. And yes, I know that sounds crazy because Porsche is in Stuttgart. Yes, we know that. But we were at a factory authorized service center. And the quality expectations were through the roof. These guys are walking around. They've got their overalls on, just as you would picture. It was an incredible operation, very clean, very orderly, and I had no problem. But again, I'm of vet descent, so I'm living in the box, and it's all good. It was very, very high level quality that was expected. And we had some guys that spoke German in our operation, and we had them with us for this demonstration. And I don't want to name specific names, but one of the leaders of, the hail company that we all know was with me, and it was his and my operation because he was the managing director of Dent Wizard Europe at the time. And he's a tremendous technician himself, although no longer pushing, obviously. But Scott and I were there, and we had Ralph Sigert, who was our German counterpart manager, who spoke fluent German, of course, because he was German. That was great. His English was good, and a couple other technicians. And it took us quite some time to fix, I think it was 5 cars that we did as a demo for them. And they went over these cars with a fine-tooth comb, and we gave them everything we had, and ended up with the deal to do the work. But it was a requirement to have some utmost quality technicians, and there were a lot of guys that the company had sent over that got sent back home as quickly as they put foot in the door and couldn't hack it. They were on the plane headed west back to America, and it was a tough one because of the caliber that was. Rightfully so. If all of our customers were like that, the dent industry would have about an eighth of the employees it currently have.
Yep.
Now, let me ask you a question, Dave.
Yes.
If you compare the American market and the European market, would you say they're following us, so to speak? Are they even with us? Are we leading the way as far as tool technology? I want to know what your opinion of a comparison would be between Americans and the Europeans.
Well, obviously,
Daniel, you have to remember again. This is going back quite some time. It's been a long time since I've been there, so I don't really have a good current.
Knowing what you know and seeing what's going on, do you pay attention to what's going on over there, or do you still have friends over there?
I do still have some friends there. I have some relatives there as well. We head over once a year to Europe, but I'm not there for business. I'm there for personal reasons, and so I really kind of have distanced myself from it. But knowing what I know, again, the internet and the ability to import and export tools has created and become it's a global situation now. It's no longer just limited to, the Americans being the greatest thing in the world, and the technology has changed and the knowledge is out there,
Hey,
and so
son, I know you're saying Americans' greatest thing in the world.
How many tank vices have you sent to Europe? Do you know? Do you have a number of that? Do they do motorcycle tanks over there?
What? I don't have that figure. It's one of the things that I'm very curious about Europe, because the motorcycle culture over there is way bigger than it is here. And I've been looking for that guy that that kind of rises above everybody else in the motorcycle industry.
I got a
And
guy.
I haven't seen one yet.
I know who he is.
Who's that?
I'll send you information. He used to come and visit me, and he used to do. He does tanks, and he's actually got. I mean, just going. I can help answer that question. I personally think the Europeans are actually going to surpass us as far as the technology of PDR tools. I think they're on to they're definitely catching up. If not already
I'm
going
definitely
past.
seeing some things coming out of Europe. You know, we've seen Excel, and I've recently been looking at Krober lights. That guy's been posting some interesting portable lights lately, and I like what I'm seeing. And I actually would like to talk to him, but he doesn't speak English. He's Italian. But yeah, you start seeing some neat tool ideas over there. And then we saw those German tools that were at the show this year at MTE.
Fairpoint. Yeah, we were just talking about that.
Yeah, we're talking.
And I was lucky enough to buy one. One guy bought the whole booth out, but I got one, and I'm in love with that tool. It's great. I love it.
Now, Dave, I mean, what do you? Let's go to now present. Okay, and you obviously you're a route tech at home, and then you go chase every now and then, like you mentioned. What are some of the tools, the current tools that you like using? Let's go first for the route, and then we'll get into the hail.
All right. So really, and again, I've only since September started my little business here, so it's still in its infancy, and I wouldn't say that I'm killing it by any means at this point in time, because I've underestimated the relationship piece that the current vendor may have with his customer. But I can tell you that on the bit that I do, tooling wise, you're looking for my favorites, or you're looking for what what my 90% is. What are your
what's your go-to tool? That one.
My go-to tool, the way I've structured myself right now is, and back to John Hiley's point, I'm not doing $40 cars. I'm not interested in that. If the volume is there, we can talk, but the $40 price point is not my bag. So I've kind of marketed myself as the big dent guy. And that kind of is separating myself, where I'm bailing some of the dealerships out, and I only have a couple, but showing the body shops and trying to educate, hey, there's a little difference here. Quality should be number one in your mind, not pricing. And so some of my go-to tools for that are going to be tools that move a considerable amount of metal in a short period of time. I like Ultra's interchangeable handled tools with the rubber tip that just take the standard quarter-inch rubber tip. I like the Dentcraft tools that take the interchangeable tip, and one that I like in particular is the 24-inch double bend. And you can get that into a lot of places. You can keep a short tip on it. I did a fender today on a Honda that has virtually no apron on the fender, and so there's this big gap of space with no leverage point. But with the interchangeable tip tools, you put a couple of extensions on, and now you can put a block in, and you can get up to the top of the fender and do what you need to do. So those are a couple of my go-to tools. I do like immensely the Blem ratcheting handled tool, the one that's I'm going to shoot from the hip and say is in the 28-inch range or 30-inch something, and it's just a simple 90-degree blade tool with that ratcheting handle, and the handle positioning is really a big one for me. I really, really like those tools where you can change the handle positions, and the ones on the Dentcraft where you can put the extension in on the handle so you have even more leverage.
Yeah.
You mean Ultra?
No.
No, the Dentcraft.
You can screw it in on
the Ultra
side.
one does also have the extension, but the T-handle, pipe handle tools on the Dentcraft tools, you can put the extensions in.
You can go super wide.
I got you.
You
For
go super
extra
wide.
leverage.
Yeah.
So those are good, and I do find myself using glue to start moving a lot of metal fast to start, to really get going. And a lot of people look at me like I have two heads. They think I'm crazy.
Now you're working mobile, right?
Yes, sir. I'm completely mobile.
Yeah.
Now you sent me a picture of I think it was a RAV4 that had been in a rollover accident with
Yes.
and
Tell us
the
about
first
that,
picture.
Vince.
Yeah, tell us your technique, because this was a RAV4 that rolled over into a ditch, into a field, and the picture you sent me, it was still sitting on its roof. The
Correct.
sunroof was caved in a good 3 inches, maybe more. I'm surprised. Was the windshield blown out too? As it should have been.
I believe the windshield was broken, and I'm sure he had that replaced immediately.
Yeah, and I know this was a bro deal for one of your buddies, but
Yes.
good Lord,
This was
I would
this
never
was a
even
share the
consider.
pain moment.
yes. Now,
Share the pain moment.
now,
So-
with that dent, or it's not even dent, it's collision. It went to a body shop. They would have cut the roof off and put a new one on.
It would have been a total. It was a 2000.
It would have been a total.
2000 Toyota, and it would have been a total just based on the the repair costs versus the value of the vehicle.
Sure.
Are
Now,
you telling us
did
you fixed this?
You did,
fixed this
yeah.
car?
I did,
Yeah.
yes.
And
Well-
was this guy in love with this car or something? Did he lose his virginity in it or something? Or what? What's the story?
Completely in love with it. And unfortunately, as he tells the story, he lost his growler when it rolled over. And so he could no longer drink his beer, which I suspect may have been part of the cause of the accident to start.
Got it.
So he's driving, and if you know this area well at all, and I know Mike's been here, I don't know who's been to the Phoenix area.
Yeah.
Within 2 hours, you can be into the mountains and into a snow and ski area up in the Flagstaff area, and we've got I think 11 or 12,000 foot elevation. And so he was up there and with some friends and hit a slick patch on the road and didn't make the turn, and his vehicle rolled, and it did. He admitted it was a soft roll. He was not going crazy fast. And the saving grace on this is that he had a cargo box on the roof. And so that saved kind of the back half of the roof when he rolled it. Now, he crushed the fender pretty good. Did I send you that photo, Vinny?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I saw that too.
The fender was crushed. That was a good shot in and of itself. The hood took a little buckle in the nose, but not as bad as you would have thought. The tow driver, I watched the video of the tow truck driver put this car back on its tires. I could not believe how gently the guy operated his towing rig to get this guy righted. Now, again, then he needed to be towed in because now all the oil and everything in the battery, and we all know what goes on with that. So he spent a fortune just getting his truck back up and running again. Should have been a total by rights. I don't believe he had full coverage. And the bottom line was the sunroof, when it was closed, wasn't closed because the nose of the roof was down so far, the back edge of the sunroof had popped up. And so the vehicle leaked. It leaked water and air. It was crazy. So
You could fit your arm through there.
Well, let
if
me
you
ask you
wanted
something.
to.
Talk
It's
about
huge.
your technique of how you realign that. Did you use
Yeah.
porta power in there? Was it a porta power situation?
It would have been, but you really don't have a place to get leverage on a porta power. So
Right, where it was.
Yeah, based on, again, it was the front edge of this roof that was buckled in, and
Yeah.
So the first thing that, and again, I helped another dent technician buddy of mine here. The first thing we did, let's take this apart. First and foremost, let's take it apart and see what we've got. So we pulled the headliner and pulled the sunroof out. And the sunroof had some plastic pieces that came with it that I didn't anticipate, but it is what it is. And so that was the first thing. Let's see what condition we've got here. But I had a pretty good idea that I could get the sunroof tray and the perimeter of the sunroof opening back in operational condition and back in track, which is really what the guy wanted. And then we went above and beyond and just went all out on the front edge of this roof. My buddy did the fender while I did the roof. And I sent Vince a photo. I pulled the driver's seat out. The majority of the damage was above the driver's head. And so I pulled the seat out, and I used a floor jack and a 2x4. in order to
Nice.
start pushing the rim and that opening in the front of the sunroof and the tray, not the tray, but the channel that the sunroof itself bolts to, the flange, and to
Right.
push that to get it going in the right direction. Certainly, at least I'll get the sunroof to then set level with the rest of the roof and close and,
Right.
and be sound. So at least he's not going to have, rainwater
Now-
coming in. And
Did you remove the sunroof before you jacked it up, or did you leave the sunroof so you could watch it settle? Did you leave
no,
it in?
I removed the sunroof before I did anything.
Okay,
I-
nice.
I
Yeah.
gutted,
Hey Vince,
I gutted it so
can
that I
you
had
send me
room.
you send me these
Yeah,
pictures?
I'm downloading it right now. I'm gonna send them to
okay,
Yeah,
you,
why don't
you
that-
listeners, if you're listening to our podcast, please go to pdrtooltime.com, listen to episode 17, or go check out episode 17, and we have the show notes along with the photos that Dave is talking about regarding this repair.
So how long did you work on this thing?
The two of us spent about 5.5 or 6 hours on it, so about 12 man hours total.
And how did it come out?
I would like to say and believe, and when you see the photos, you can judge for yourself. It came out very well.
Mhm.
Oh,
It was
and the
one of
customer
those.
Happy, right?
The customer was happy, absolutely. It was one of those. Again, it was the boy. Let's misery loves company.
Now, would you have done this if it wasn't your buddy? Doing it as a badge of honor?
Kind of, and maybe a little bit more, just to see if I could get it and to see if I could make what I thought I could make happen.
I think we've all done that. I mean,
Yeah.
Sure.
I recently worked on a motorcycle tank where the bike fell over on a tire and it caved in the whole side of this Harley tank. And I wanted to use it as a badge of honor. And I got down to the last 10% of this dent. And I was twisting on my tool, and the Allen for the extension on my tip broke. And it went through the paint and cracked
Oh,
the paint.
nice.
Yeah, I was like that close, and it was heartbreaking when that happened. But yeah, I think we've all been there and done that kind of stuff.
That's when you debate changing the name of your company to "Do you have this color touch-up dent repair?"
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
I've been there.
I'm
done
actually
it.
looking. I'm looking at the photo now, and the part that I'm the most impressed with is not the sunroof rim, but underneath the structural up at the front, because that had to have been the bear underneath all that bracing that's up front there.
Yes.
After you got that, because that sunroof probably lined up, and a lot of that probably disappeared during the aligning process. But that under there, you tooled that, didn't you?
Correct.
A lot of that. Yeah.
A lot of that, and a lot of it I also glue pulled as well. And in my glue pulling, expertise isn't the right word, but in my process and in my mind, I like to take a methodical approach and begin moving. And there are a lot of buckles on the front of that
Sure.
roof, and you slowly bring metal up while you release pressure on the crowns. We all know that in this group. And again, it takes a little more time that way, but you're methodical. You know what you've got. You're not running in there and just slamming the slide hammer and jacking things and not knowing what's happening. It's a controlled process. And
Yeah.
especially on something like that, you have to control it because you specifically want to make that metal go back where it needs to go.
Yeah, it's good repair.
Nice.
I mean, it's really good. I mean, this is what techs need to see. It's like, nothing's impossible. You got the right tools, man. You can do it. That's
It's
Honestly,
not-
I think anything's possible if you have the time and the dedication.
yeah.
Yeah.
I turned down a Mini Cooper quarter yesterday.
Hey man,
I gotta
we
tell
pick
ya.
and choose our battles, man. Now
When the door jam, when the quarter panel jam has pulled away from the door, and you can slide your fingers into the gap between the door and the quarter panel and feel the latch, I thought it would be time to turn that one down.
Yeah.
All right, well let's.
Yeah,
hey,
but don't you always I judge a customer? Is a customer coming to see me because he loves his car, or is he just trying to save a buck? Because I'll work much harder for a customer that loves his car.
I think both in this case, but he bought the car with the damage on it, and the gentleman commutes from another city here and works here 4 days out of the week and doesn't know anyone, and so one of his contacts was a glass vendor that I know, and I said, well, start with Dave, and then we can see where we can go from there. But that one finally there was just too much on that. The rollover piece, because it landed in the snow, really, kept it relatively soft. There were a lot of buckles up there, but it was relatively soft. And the back portion of the roof wasn't damaged because that cargo box broke the fall, so to speak, when that rollover took place. And so it was one that, I don't want to say that it's deceptive, but it's one that wasn't as bad as you would expect when you hear the term rollover. But there was significant amount of damage and enough certainly to keep that sunroof from closing. But you've got to be creative and imaginative and put your expertise and ideas to work. And okay, so it took a little time to take it all apart, to pull the seat, but then I had a flat surface for my floor jack. There was the ability once that perimeter was up, then you can start moving metal back where it needs to go.
Yeah.
And so it's a methodical process, but it was fun. It was a fun afternoon. It was a Saturday afternoon, and hey, what the heck? I'm going to give it a shot. That was I'm just not the self-defeater in this industry. It's not, this is too much, too bad, too hard. And that's kind of overrun the industry. And that's why, that's my opinion, why some of the pricing's at $40.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. That's right.
Not bringing any value to the table.
Yeah.
Right.
That's
now,
right.
Where do you see?
Hold on a second, Vince. You got that mentality. See, everyone's got that mentality, but they don't know what type of mentality it is. And that's what I call MMD mentality. That's mixed martial dents. I mean, you've got to be a black belt in everything you do. I mean, you've got to, you can't sit there and go, well, I always think, well, there's going to be some guy, behind me. Oh, Mike Toledo tried to do this and he said no. That's going to give me inspiration to do it. You know what I mean? There's always going to be somebody behind you that's going to take a shot, regardless if you did or not. So I'd rather take a shot knowingly I couldn't do it. But more importantly, I always seem to find a way to do it because I don't want somebody else to do it behind me. So I think that's what every tech needs to have, is that type of mentality, is to go into those type of dents and think like that, Right. Today's the age of mixed martial dents. That's what you got to be, and if you're not, you don't have the mentality, one day you're going to get your butt whipped on one of those techniques that are not familiar with, or you just are lazy and you didn't want to do it. So,
hey, Mike, and if they do get the job, it should be because they were cheaper than you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, well, it was just too expensive to bring it to Mike. And,
that's right. I'm the Louis Vuitton of PDR, right? I look. When some customer says, "Oh, that's too expensive," I always want to reply, but I'm professional. I don't say nothing, but I'd like to reply. Well, I understand, but not everybody can afford high quality. So, you know what I mean? It's like. You're not going to go
use the shame clothes.
Yeah, you can't afford, a Louis Vuitton, but don't get mad because you can't afford it. So, anyways,
I've used the shame clothes, Mike. I've used the shaming clothes. I've got in here. I've had a guy, I start seeing him jittering around this and that. And I'll be like, hey, I can understand if you can't swing it right now. I mean, we can always set it up for next. Hey, what do you mean I can't swing it? Of course I've got money to pay. Sign me up for this. All right, let's go ahead and schedule right. I've got money.
Reverse psychology.
Yeah, man, you got to shame them a little bit. Oh, I can understand if you can't swing it this month, but your Social Security's coming in, things like that. Why? I've got money to pay for this.
Yeah.
I don't recommend that, man. You got to have some confidence to roll like that.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. You can't always pull that card.
Square reader. I take credit cards.
Exactly.
The shame close.
23% interest on PDR, no problem.
This is going into a really good podcast here. Real good, great discussion here. But we haven't even got to we want to get to the hail part too, because it's hail season right now. What are some of your favorite go-to tools that you take? And I know, we're talking, this is the top thing, your rod, your wires, your whale tail, shave tool. I mean, what are you going for when you do a roof or a trunk? What do you do?
I did 4 weeks last year with hail, and I took the majority of, and I'm not bragging, this is not my point, but I had moved in 2015 and I took the majority of 2015 off. And I had a potential relationship not deliver what I thought it would be, working relationship not turn out the way I thought. So that being said, and I'm not going to name names, but I took the majority of last year off and ended up doing a couple of weeks of hail for this for this group that it didn't work out with, and then a couple more in the kind of north central plain states with a buddy of mine out of Denver, and really a couple of good go-to tools that I really like, and depending on the vehicle again, hail wise, you've got to have a solid paddle tool, and we used to call them BMW tools. Remember that, Vince?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, that was the kind of the originator. They used to be called the BMW tool, but yeah, your whale tail. And I really like the Dentcraft. I like the short, the 10-inch kind of black handle, wide one for just general close-up work. I like their extra wide one if you can get it to fit in. That's a great tool with tons of leverage, and that's a big one. You want to make sure that you're not wasting a lot of energy pushing. You just want to become efficient. And certainly if you're doing a long haul or you're doing a 12 or 15-hour day, you're going to wear down. But if you can extend it by eliminating any fatigue in your tools, the stiffer the tool, the better, because then you're going to get that energy transfer. I use a steel high spot tool. Generally speaking, you get a better energy transfer and get that high spot truly knocked down. I do like, and I'm not touting Dentcraft, but I do like their standard 4-foot double bend, just with the kind of that tapered shaved tip. That's a nice tool when you don't have anything terribly sharp or big, and you can motor through, and it's got good leverage. The ones with the interchangeable tips are fantastic. I carry Ultra's breakdown rod, their big aluminum breakdown bar. Put your couple of tips on, again, depending on what you need, what kind of damage you have. You can start with something, either rubber or rounded tip or a flat, they've got their dome, their half round tips that I think are fantastic as a steel tip to start a hail dent with.
Yeah.
And then you flip it over and you've got yourself a little sharper tool, or maybe that small round, that little R4 tip, and you clean up and finish up with. Do you guys know who Rick Hummert is?
Not off the top of my head. No.
All right. Rick Hummert was probably he was the first guy I ever saw fix a dent with paintless dent repair. And he's been around in the industry forever. And he's got a company called Excalibur Tools. And he's created a hail bar that's got a bend in it that becomes a shoulder saver. So while we're all working with these T-handle, generally speaking, these T-handle bars, now you're leveraging, and you've got to have your hand turned cockeyed or one way or the other, and now you're kind of in this position cranking on a roof. It becomes uncomfortable, and certainly over the course of a day. So he's taken, and I'll send you guys the photo, or maybe I'll send it to Vince because I've got his mobile, and I'll send you the photo. But he's created a hail bar. It's 5/8 of an inch in diameter.
What's his website?
There is no flex in this rod, and it's about, I want to say it's a 4.5 foot rod. It takes interchangeable tips, but only one. So there's only one tip on it. You can't flip it over. The point being with that, on the other end, he's got a little 45-degree bend on the tool, and it really conforms to your body as you're standing at a car or on your quick bench on a truck or whatever. And now your arm is just going down at your side, rather than having your hand, if you guys can see me, without having your hand on this T-handle, it's down at your side, and it's very comfortable and very effective. And without the flex that some of the other hail bars have, the energy transfer is immense with his tool. And I'll send that over, and you guys can check it out. And it's a wonderful tool. And I'm not sure
he has a website. I'm looking all over for it.
It's not up and running as a tool website. It's excaliburtools.com or something. But
I got Dent Tool Company, and I see Dent Tools, but this is NL, so it's a different company.
The letter X, Caliber, Caliber, I think is how he spells it.
Got it.
If you find that, shoot Vince over the link so we can put that on the website.
Yeah.
I think the guys out there. I understand exactly what you're saying. It makes sense.
Yeah.
I'll send you a photo of the tool, though, because that's important. And then when you see that particular hail bar, you'll understand it.
Yeah. So maybe that'll even out my traps. So I actually, I'm standing there, I'm getting my back tattooed, And the guy's like, well, are you standing lopsided or something? And I'm like, well, nah, I mean, this is just how. He's like, why is one shoulder bigger than the other? So one of my traps are literally bigger than the other side, and it's probably because of what you said right there. I got my arm all jacked up at like a 45-degree angle. I'm doing freaking tricep pumps up here at the top, doing trap pumps. And if my hand was down a little bit further, it'd probably be easier to use. You know, I wouldn't have this giant second head that's getting ready to come out of my shoulder.
Exactly. And again, the way the tool is, you know, it comes out of the car from whatever your leverage device is, whether it's a hook, a strap, a bar, whatever, and then it angles down a little bit. And so then, you know, the way you were, John, you were there. And so now your arm is down here while you're doing the pushing, and it's not cocked back here. You don't have to have your hand turned. You got your hand this way, and it's just a wonderful up and down motion.
So basically, a rotor cup, it's not kind of out of normal position.
Yeah, you're not cockeyed. You're not back here. It's just right by your side, and you just go straight up and down. It's a great hail bar, and I was a touch skeptical when I saw him, and it had been years since I had seen him. Vince, check your phone for a message with that picture.
Yeah.
And it had been years since I had seen Rick, and, you know, we caught up and got on like a house on fire. And I was a little skeptical when I first saw it, and especially because it was 5/8, because it feels heavy, but it's very well balanced. And when you have it in, you know, again, whether you're using the hole in the strap, the little deal up at the window frame, or if you've got a bar as your leverage point, it becomes very well balanced. And so I like that quite a bit.
Nice.
Wire tools, Mike, I like the Blem tools. I know you just jumped on the A1 bandwagon with the Quicksilver.
Yeah, I do have Blem though, but there's a. Do you have his secret set? Because he's got a secret set. It's like a little thicker, it's shaved. It's, you know, it's a thicker set, but they're expensive. They're like
I could get a secret set.
$675 for
Nobody told me about a secret set.
Yeah,
I do not have the password.
No, but yeah, I do have I have their standard wire set, and it's awesome. It's straight set. Yeah,
I was gonna say it used to be a secret set.
Yeah.
It's like the secret menu at In-N-Out.
There's only going to be like thousands of people that know about the secret now.
Well, yeah, I'm definitely going to ask.
We'll put the
for
secret on our website too for you guys.
You have to ask for them. You have to ask.
Don't tell Mike a secret. There's three. A telephone, a
the secret.
a telephone, a telegraph, and a telemic.
Yeah, I forgot. We got
three forms of communication.
Couple thousand listeners.
Yeah, you know what?
So those are good, and you can get through the majority of the damage, you know, and those are the basics and my go-tos. You know, the Ultra Shaved is a good set as well, because you can get into some places, you know, around sunroof trays and things like that. Some of those braces are very tight depending on your vehicle and the damage, you know.
Yeah.
We all love those Honda CRVs with sunroofs for hail.
Yeah. Or what about the Honda crossovers? You've worked on any of those, and you guys have a pleasure of working on those?
No.
Oh,
haven't seen.
You better run. Yeah. There's more braces in there than friggin' I think NASA has in the friggin' space shuttle, man. So.
Do you guys remember battling with the Pacifica roofs?
Yes.
Oh my God, that stuff they sprayed on there.
Yep.
That was rock solid.
Yeah.
You know them Chrysler Pacificas. That stuff, when they sprayed that on them roofs, that stuff you could hardly chisel through it. And you'd be lucky enough to get through it. And by the time you got through it, you done jammed a big high spot up there because you were just fighting to get through it. So by the time your tool got through it, bam, big old poke coming through there. And then things were pain in the...
I think one of the worst doors I ever worked on was when I first started with my stepdad. And we worked on Dodge Daytonas. And those doors right there. Look at Dave.
Yeah,
he's
Daytona.
nodding. Oh man, I'd have to stick a tool in, and nothing would get in there. I'd have to make a dent, make a high spot to get to the dent, and then retract. And I know I think Tom Price was telling me that a while ago, and that's what reminds me of that specific car that I had to work on. I hated Dodge, man. So
did you come from the window, or did you try anything from the bottom? Was there a way to get in the bottom?
I drilled from top to side to the bottom. I mean, that thing sounded like a wind tunnel when somebody drove off on it, because I didn't know how to get to it.
Better gas mileage, man. You lighten that thing up.
That thing was built like a tank, man.
I
Jeez.
always deferred if I couldn't do it at the top. Early on in my career, I always tried to defer to see if I could slide up from the bottom through a rain hole. And years ago, the rain holes used to be pretty big, and in almost every vehicle.
Yeah.
And if you couldn't do the top, a lot of times you had success from the bottom. And today the Bentleys are that way. You do almost anything towards the front of the door from the bottom.
Yeah.
They've got these big plugs in the bottom, and it's you just have to know that that's there.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Now, guys, Mike? Are we going to be moving on to our? I think we're going a little long on this one. You want to be moving into our quick tips?
Yeah,
here
let's get to it. I think we got everything covered with Dave, and he's really good stuff there. So
Daniel.
Very, very good. Very good.
Daniel.
Yes.
Come on, what's your tech tip for the week?
I always start. You guys start.
Well, I wanted to give Dave a chance to think of a tech tip.
I got a tech tip.
Hey,
I'll go first.
I'll start, man. I'll start.
All right, John.
Okay,
Johnny,
go ahead.
Go for it.
All right, so my tech tip's going to be a little something different, and it's going to be more about a mentality here than an actual tool tip, but it is going to be a tool as well, in a sense that you're going to feel better, you're going to work better, and you're going to just do better. So I don't know if any of you guys know, but I lost about 50 pounds over the last couple years. And yeah, about 50 pounds. So, I was much heavier 2-3 years back or whatever. And, it feels great to lose that type of weight. But an interesting thing, I actually did it on like an Atkins style diet, right? And some of the interesting perception, because that'll only take you so far. And then you get to the point to where you kind of got to switch it up and change things up a little bit. And one of the most interesting things is just the mindset when you go to eat. Instead of thinking of diet, this is why diets don't work, okay, guys? Diets don't work is because you're thinking about food all day long. You're thinking about, I can't eat this, or I can't eat that, or I can't eat this, or I can't eat that. And then what happens is, because you're thinking about it all day long, you're just dying to eat something. You're just dying to splurge, and you end up splurging at some point, okay? What I want you guys out there who are out there, you're trying to get on a little bit of a healthier track, some of the health techs out there, it's eating out, things like that. Instead of focus on dieting and what you're doing to cut down and diet, focus on loving yourself so much that you want to put the best food in your body to maintain the best energy, the best wholesome level, the best spirit that's inside of you based on the food that you eat. You know what I mean? Build your temple by mind, body, soul. It's a shift. It's a paradigm shift. So instead of looking at things like, I can't eat this or I can't eat that, change the paradigm shift and look at it like, what can you do that's going to provide you the most energy and build yourself to the best version you can possibly be? And that's going to be a phenomenal tool out there when you're in the field. You're going to be working. You're going to have energy. And most importantly, you're going to save yourself a lot of hospital bills in the future, because food is one of the best medicines that you can ever take. The right type of food is a medicine. It is a healer. And that's my tech tip. So I'm hoping I can change somebody's life with that. There we go.
Mike is getting really uncomfortable with that right now.
Because I just had a big barbecue sandwich.
I
just had a big barbecue sandwich. I'm getting ready.
I saw that sandwich you posted today.
Yeah,
made me hungry.
But I just wanted to say, all my kids are home, but they're going to start terrorizing this place. But you're right, John. You need a good temple and good body to keep yourself going. Especially you hail techs out there working 15 hours a day, pushing. You got to take care of that body if you want to push next year, and the year after, and the year after. But my tech tip is, today we had another Dodge. Thank you very much. Dodge Journey. In the right rear door, I whacked the panel, put a nice big dent in for my student. And I said, okay, here you go. There's probably some backing in there. Go ahead and push in there. But he couldn't get this tool there. And I was like, no, it's got to be backing, So I pushed the back, tried to push the backing. But lo and behold, there's a brace that goes right down the middle, vertically. And it's glued. So what we did is we went through the side. And we had to do is I took a heat gun and I heated the hell out of that door, the front door. And you can see that the glue was pulling the brace in the panel. You could see it coming up like a high spot. And then we shoved the tool in there, got right to it. But we couldn't shove the tool in there before because the glue was so hard. So my tech tip is, try to get a heat gun, heat the front of the panel up really hot, and then stick your tool in there and you can get right behind it. A lot of guys don't seem to do that. They force their tool in there, and then they make these giant unwanted high spots, and sometimes even crack the paint. But it's my tech tip. Check that out.
Nice.
Okay, you ready, Dave?
Okay.
Or is it John? Is it you?
I'll
man.
go.
Daniel.
I'll go. So mine's kind of a tool hack. So I had a Shane jackhammer, extra long one.
Bench grinder.
And honestly, it was too long, and I never used it. And I like my blending hammer to rock in my hand. And I had an extra rubber ball, one of those 2-inch rubber balls, and I ended up cutting off the handle, and I threaded it and put the ball on the end, and then put a
bench grinder on.
I went to the bicycle store, and I got me a little foam bicycle pad.
Imagine
and
that.
slid that on there for the handle, and then put the rubber ball on there, and made a shorter blending hammer with the ball on the end. And now it's like it's the best hammer.
Send me a picture of that.
I will.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Cool. You're always MacGyvering your tools, though, Daniel.
Shane Jackson's gonna
Always.
break you for that, dude.
He's gonna
He gets
take your
pissed.
MP. He's gonna take your vice stand and break it over his knee, dude. So
I know.
watch.
Yeah. Hey. Yo, me and Mike was talking about that real quickly, though. We are going to have a show talking about how it's sad when people do copy designs like that, because as tool makers, the problem is, guys, if you support a company that copies somebody's tool designs, then you're supporting somebody who's stifling innovation in the industry. So there's no reason to innovate if all of us guys are just going to let people copy tool designs and stuff like that.
That's going to be on
We got
another
to stand
podcast,
up.
though. Yeah.
Yeah, we got to stand up and bind together on that stuff and just make sure that's not happening.
Yeah.
All right, Dave, it's your turn.
All right. I think too, and it may have been said before, the not the inability, but the desire and the focus to just take an extra step. And I'm not telling you that I'm a no-hole Nazi by any means, but to take the extra step, to take some things apart and understand what you're getting into and what you're up against can be a time saver in the long run, and I did a couple of panels at my Lexus dealer. There's another guy I share the lot with, and I do some of the bigger damage. And so it took me a little bit to take some things apart. I pulled the taillight out, and I realized there was another electrical box that was anchored inside that quarter panel where I wanted to be. And had I not taken the time to take things apart, I wouldn't have seen it. That was my surefire way to get in. The dent was right in the body line on the wheel well lip on an ES. But if you just take the time, and it took me a couple of bolts to pull the taillight out, a couple of nuts on that, a couple of wiring harnesses, and then I took another 3 bolts out for this electrical box, and it gave me complete full access to run down, almost down into the dogleg if I would have so chosen. And, just to take that extra couple seconds to take something apart, if you can see it, if you get a visual on it, you understand completely what you're up against, rather than, I could have easily jacked the car up, shot a hole in the wheel well. Maybe I would have been there. Maybe I wouldn't have. I don't know for sure. But taking it apart, I think, just gives you that extra bit of clarity and knowledge for the next time to just file away in your brain. Hey, I remember now, this is what I experienced, and this is what I'm up against.
Yeah, and sometimes you're sadly disappointed, like on the new 3 Series BMWs. Those rear doors are ridiculous. They have a diagonal brace in the back of the door now that is the stupidest thing I've ever seen in my life. A normal door dent that was fixable is now a challenge. You're taking apart the door panel to get to it.
Right.
But
you need to see
right.
it to experience it and understand it too.
Sure. And then you make that mental memory note and know how to get to it and get it out quicker. And it's all for the better good of yourself, really. And knowing, the next time the customer calls, how you're going to access it before you even get to the dent or get to the customer's house. You've already built up, what you're going to do before you even knock on the door.
Yeah.
I always check PDR X-ray on Facebook. That thing has been tremendous. I was working on a Challenger the other day, and I checked on that Facebook page what the quarter panel looked like, and I knew there was a perfect picture there, and I knew exactly where the bracing was, and If I didn't have that, it would have taken me about half an hour longer if I didn't know where that brace was.
Oh, okay, Vinny, what's up, dude? Tech tip.
Yeah, I don't have one. Go on. Move on.
All right, we're out of here.
I'm gonna pass this week. I can't think of anything clever. Be good to
Okay.
yourself.
All right.
I don't
Love
All
yourself
right.
first.
Am I?
Yeah,
am you
my
guys
tech
here?
tip is here's my tech tip. You're only as good as your last job.
How
Remember
about this? Bill them till they holler, then back it down $1.
that.
That's a good one.
Appreciate it,
Yes.
Yes,
Dave.
thank you, Dave. That was great. It was
Yeah,
Thanks for
great
having me on. I
conversation,
appreciate
man.
your time. It's fantastic.
All right, we out.
And don't forget, level up your tools.
Join our revolution.
All right, guys.
Hey, Mike, I like the way you